You're listening to the Casting for Fun podcast, the show that talks about entertainment, sports, music, and inspirational stories for all to enjoy. We're glad you could join us today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now, here is your host, Albert Pineda.
Welcome, everybody, to the Casting for Fun podcast. I am your host, Albert Pineda. And for this week's episode, I'm going to be having a conversation with my good buddy, Joel Tibbet. This is going to be really fun, really exciting for me to get to talk to Joel. Joel and I have quite a bit in common, and we're going to be touching on some really cool topics that I think will be of interest to a lot of people. Joel and his family are longtime residents of the Pasadena area, so we're going to be talking Pasadena, one of the coolest cities in California, talking about the history of the city, a lot of rich history that the city has, cool hangout spots, fun times in the city. Joel is also a huge Batman fan, as am I, but Joel especially. So I definitely wanted to get his take on the new, the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson as the Dark Knight. So it'd be really cool to hear what he has to say about that. And as an extra treat too, we're going to be talking Depeche Mode. We both absolutely love Depeche Mode. We would both proclaim Depeche Mode as being our favorite band. And we get to do a special tribute for Andy Fletcher, which again, I've been thinking of ever since he passed away last month. So it was nice to have a conversation about that. And the episode was recorded on June the 18th of 2022, which is the 34th anniversary of Depeche Mode's legendary Rose Bowl concert, which happened back in June 18th of 1988. Neither of us were in attendance. I mean, I was only 7 years old, almost 8, and Joel wasn't born yet, but we did have a great conversation about that. And I do like the idea of recording. As I mentioned before in previous episodes, this is essentially a audio journal. And I think it's important to document stuff like this. So I'm grateful that Richard Blade, who's one of the most prolific DJs out there, huge Depeche Mode fan, knows the band super well, wrote a really great book about his life, World in My Eyes, where he talked extensively about that concert experience. And then, of course, if you remember from a couple episodes ago, Brian Dowdle joined me on the show because he got to attend the concert in person because he was old enough to go. So it was really cool for me to have this stuff documented, so people like myself and Joel, who didn't get to experience it firsthand but love it, can actually live it by hearing the words and reading the words and getting an understanding and feel from what it was like from people who were there. So another example why documenting stuff like this is really important. In fact, we even go over Joel's family history in Pasadena, and all of that he is aware of because it was documented. So I think it's a really important thing and a really cool thing. And I'm going to be doing a documenting episode about my family, speaking to my parents in July next month. So I'm really excited for that. But before we get to that, let's have my conversation with Joel about Pasadena, Batman, and Depeche Mode, and a special tribute to Andy Fletcher. Joining me now on the Casting for Fun podcast is my good buddy, Joel Tibbet. Joel, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, Albert. I heard a lot about your podcast, and so looking forward to get to be a part of it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm really excited to chat about some of our favorite things. It's actually pretty cool that we have a lot of similar interests, and it's just fun talking. So, so yeah, definitely want to talk about your family's history living in Pasadena. I mean, my understanding was you and your family are longtime residents of the city. And Pasadena is definitely one of the coolest cities, not just in California, but maybe in the whole country. So there's definitely a lot of cool history things to talk about with that. And also, we both love Batman, but you especially really love the Dark Knight. So chatting about Pattinson's new movie and then a general conversation about Batman, it's always fun to do. And then last but not least, today is a very important day in the history of our mutual favorite band of all time, Depeche Mode. It's the 34th anniversary of the Rose Bowl show. Neither of us were in attendance. In fact, I think you weren't even born yet at the time. But exactly. I think it'll still be fun to chat about that and to do a special tribute for Andrew Fletcher with his recent passing occurring last month. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun conversation.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Perfect. Okay, so starting with Pasadena, you and your family have been longtime residents. So obviously you know the city very well. What are your feelings? How do you enjoy living in the city of Pasadena? What's your general impression, I guess, of the city?
Well, so I think I'm a little biased and a little skewed on Pasadena here. simply because, like you said, my family has a long history. In fact, as of a few months ago, I recently was able to track down, and I'm still trying to verify with 100% validity here. I found out that my family was the first white people born in the Arroyo Seco, now known as Pasadena.
Oh, awesome.
So that was kind of a cool little fact for me. So like I said, we've had multiple generations. I believe that was 1860, 60 or 62, that we can track that down. Then my family started working for Pio Pico, collecting sticks and things to help him build his empire in Los Angeles and the Pasadena, San Gabriel Valley area. So as far as Pasadena goes for me, have a great history here, have a great understanding of it, really appreciate it. I think a few of my favorite things to do in the city all have to do with its history. The arts and crafts movement that rolled through here, the Green and Green brothers, their architectural designs. Going to see the Gamble House is a big one. That in and of itself is a huge part of Pasadena, I believe. I love craftsman style, Black and Decker House, and many others that the Green and Green brothers designed. Also, fun little trivia fact that I enjoy about the Green and Green brothers is their last standing commercial design building exists in Pasadena. It's now a pawn shop. I believe it's on Raymond in Colorado. So that's kind of a fun place to go check out if you haven't seen it. But other than that, I mean, we've got a bunch of good history that I find fascinating across. I don't know if I think it's across the street from the Green and Green brothers, actually, on Raymond. There's a bank. It was Pasadena's first bank. And as of I think 10 years ago, somewhere within there, they found out that it was actually, there's a lot of catacombs down beneath the subsurface of it that go miles underneath Pasadena. And they did this because it was originally a bank, and then the banker's daughter died well down in the basement, and they sealed it off. And then later on, when it was sold, they tried to do a little excavation and expansion of the new bank, and a couple workers died down there. So they really just said, all right, we're just sealing this whole place off. They concreted over it. And then 10 years ago, or what have it, a new owner came in to open the place up. And they started cutting through concrete and realized they didn't actually fill in the entire basement with concrete. They just concreted over the entryway to it. So they went down there, they started an escape room, a Halloween thing, this whole deal. And they started doing like radar scanning and realized there's miles and miles of catacombs under there, because there used to be an old Catholic church back when the missions came through the area that sat there. Not a mission like San Gabriel mission, just a church, but it's got a very unique, creative, like cool history like that throughout this city. And I could go on forever about Pasadena in and of itself. So I don't know if you have any questions, anything you'd like to talk about in particular.
Well, the catacomb sounds really fascinating. I had no clue about that. So I guess it's not necessarily public knowledge, right? And I mean, it's not like they're allowing people to go in and see them.
The catacombs, I don't know that they've fully they picked it up on radar scans with 3D street radar. So they were able to ground penetrating radar, sorry. And I don't know that they've dug them out or anything. To be honest, it may affect the structural integrity of a lot of the buildings in the city. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if they really have a desire to, or people with the money to excavate that kind of thing just to find bones or whatever, what have you. Maybe more interesting things, but I don't know. But it is public knowledge. You can search it. It's hard to find, but it's out there. The city's name, kind of another little fun fact. City name is actually from a Chippewa word. Chippewa Indians are out of Indiana, which was the original name of Pasadena before it became a city. Um, so, so Pasadena was originally part of a Mexican land grant when the country of Mexico owned the property, the land, and when California and the American government bought it off them after the Mexican-American War. It was subdivided and bought out by multiple people. The biggest three really that come to mind are Henry Huntington of the Huntington Library and the Huntington Hotel. And he essentially started San Marino. And then another one was Benjamin Eaton, who we all know as Eaton Canyon, right?
Yeah.
And his son, Frederick Eaton, actually was the mayor of LA and helped create the aqueduct with Mulholland. So to bring water, because that his dad was also a water purveyor in the city of Pasadena. And then the third biggest land grant was actually a bunch of people from Indiana. And so the original name of Pasadena was the Indiana Colony. And they wrote back home to their friends and family asking what they should name it, because the city of Los Angeles, when they were going up to be incorporated, wouldn't allow them to use Indiana Colony. So they needed a name, and they wrote back to their family, and their families all wrote back certain things from Chippewa words. And every single one of them, the crown of the valley, the rose of the valley, all the different terms had the valley in them, which in Chippewa was Pasadena, at least the way I say it. I'm sure there's a more fluent way to say it, Pasadena or something, whatever that. But yeah, Pasadena ended up being the name because it actually means the valley in Chippewa. And so we use it as a collective term for the crown of the valley, which is the nickname of Pasadena now. But that was the 1800s. 1876 was when Pasadena was incorporated as the fourth city in the city of Los Angeles. And here we are now, coming up on our 150th anniversary. So 4 more years.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I bet the city's definitely got something special planned for that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Going back to the Gamble House, it's actually kind of cool and interesting that many people may not recognize the name Gamble House, but as soon as you see it, and if you're a fan of 80s movies, you definitely recognize it because it's the house of Emmett Doc Brown from Back to the Future, which is really, really cool. And I guess no one's actually living there, but they do actual public tours, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, it was owned by USC up until about a year and a half ago, and then they sold it, and a private company bought it and continues to run tours out of it and keep it up. Emmett Brown's house was actually the garage of the Gamble House, and I believe the scene in which you see inside his house in the 1950s was another craftsman house in the city of Pasadena. It wasn't actually the Gamble House, if I recall correctly. It might have been the painter or the Decker house, but yeah, like you said, 1980s classic there.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, definitely. The exterior shots are for sure used in the movie, but I believe you're correct that the interiors were actually from a different house in Pasadena, which is cool. So many cool, fun things to do in the city. The Rose Bowl is a really cool place to go hang out for jogging. I mean, now me as a full-time dad, I got a huge dad bod, so I'm not really running anymore. But when I was jogging around the Rose Bowl was really fun because so many people would be there. And then the Colorado Street Bridge, which again, unfortunately has the local slang nickname of being Suicide Bridge, is actually a really cool place to go check out fireworks from the Rose Bowl on the 4th of July. I did that one time when, they have a few cars. I don't remember if they blocked it off or maybe just cars are driving very slowly on it, but everyone's walking on the bridge perfect spots to watch fireworks, so which I thought was really fun. So what would be some of your favorite hangout places in Pasadena to do just for fun?
If we're speaking about just drinking, hanging out, chilling, I would have to say that Stone Brewery, that area, the old Memorial Park area where there's lawn bowling and things to do over by the Castle Green.
Mhm.
It's a great area, Old Town, especially in Old Town where there's still a lot of architectural history to look at. Like I said, the Castle Green is a great place to just kind of walk by. It's on Green Street, between Colorado and Green Street. There's plenty of walking, plenty of things to look at, plenty of places to stop, eat, hang out. I don't know if there's one, or the doghouse is a great place to go, just hang out at. If I recall correctly, Pasadena was one of the original dog houses. So that's a kind of cool little fact, that, everyone knows the doghouse now.
Yeah.
It's grown into a popular place. The Norton Simon Museum, great place to stop at for art. Actually, this is kind of an odd one to hang out at, because it's not. JPL is a great place to go up into the Hahamunga Canyon, with all the hiking trails and things to do up in the upper part of Pasadena, La Cañada mixture area. JPL does still carry a Pasadena address, just because the post office wasn't able to handle the mail. The La Cañada post office wasn't able to handle the mail of JPL, which is a little fun fact as to why JPL is synonymous with Pasadena.
Yeah.
Because the Pasadena post office was able to take it on, and therefore they got Pasadena address. Also made by Jack Parson, crazy, friend with L. Ron Hubbard of Scientology, the creator of Scientology, another Pasadena, not native, but grew up in Pasadena.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, there's a ton of places to hang out. The lower Arroyo Casting Ponds is a great place down below the Colorado Bridge. It used to be the pool area for what was known as the Arroyo Vista Hotel, Vista Arroyo Hotel, which is down at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Very, very famous castle almost looking hotel. You can see it off the Colorado Bridge. So the Navy used that during World War II, just like the Ordnance Test Station where we met, right?
Mhm.
And the rumors are, because people say, why did the Navy have to have a hospital out in the middle of Pasadena where there's no ocean or anything else, was that they were using it as a cover story to do testing on radioactive materials. And because they were able to say X-ray machines and otherwise, if there was any radioactive traces left over there, they would have been able to cover it up with the hospital story. So people say it's haunted down there. People say it's spooky because of course, Suicide Bridge, but also because of the hospital testing, other things that went on there. Walking around Caltech, PCC. I mean, I could go on forever with areas in Pasadena that are great to explore, walk around and hang out by, things to do. I mean, there's just so much in this town.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Really quick, just to wrap up with Pasadena, two food options that I wanted to bring up, which I think, food options are really cool, especially if they're local to your city. It was actually our mutual friend, Matt Hulamard, who brought to my attention Lucky Boy, which again, is just so funny and cool that the head chef, the worker, the owner, whatever he is, like, he's just very surly and like suffers no fools. Like, if you don't know what you want to order, like, get out of line and he'll let you know about that. But it's perfectly located right off of on Fair Oaks. Like if you get off the 110 freeway, which my friends and I got into the habit of taking the 110 to go to Dodger games, which was really fun. Taking the old Pasadena freeway, then coming back, it just perfectly drops you off right there, so you can get a good burger. They're open late. There are lots of good food options there. And then lastly, there was actually a really cool small taco truck spot that my friend told me about. That one is located on. Let me see that. Wait, I'm taking my notes here. Oh no, I apologize. Lucky Boy is on Arroyo Parkway. I should know that. I mean, I apologize. Okay, Fair Oaks Avenue is where the taco truck is. It's called El Taquito Mexicano. Really, really good taco truck. They're open super late too. So
It,
you're coming home from a Dodger game, two really good food options to eat, or if you're just hanging out late in Pasadena. So, do you have any food spots that you like that are kind of exclusive to Pasadena?
So the second one, the taco truck you mentioned, is on Bellevue and Fair Oaks,
Yeah.
and that is a really good place. I've stopped there a few times myself. You're right; it's a late night adventure. Um, as far as real secret hole in the wall, not secret, but Pasadena native hole in the wall spots that are good. Domenico's is a standout in my mind. There's been a lot of copies of Domenico's. There's been a lot of Domenico expansions. They had one in Arcadia for a while that disappeared. They had one in Monrovia that's still there, but it's not the same exact food. And there's one in Glendora, which is also not the same.
Mhm.
So Pasadena is the last original Domenico's. It used to be over on Fair Oaks in a basement, and they moved to Washington there. So that's a great one if you haven't had it. And the other one, sorry, I'm really leaning towards Italian here, is Tarantino's. It's on Green Street. It's a cash only place. It's on the south side of the street. Maybe a little hard to find, a little hard to park for, but great food, great pizzas, different options. There's salads and other things in there as well. But it's totally worth going into, checking out. I'd love to send people there, especially post-COVID, where I'm sure a lot of small businesses are, maybe hurting still a little bit, trying to come back from that. So those would be my two top picks of the night, honestly.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, neither one of those I've tried before, so I definitely need to give them a shot. Very cool. Are you ready to jump into some Batman talk?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So as we mentioned at the top of the show, Joel is a huge Batman fan. Absolutely loves him. It's his all-time favorite superhero. So the movies are always really cool experiences. Some are better than others, yeah. But and then it was a very interesting pick for Robert Pattinson to be picked as Batman. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to some of my previous episodes. I did an episode talking about the Batman movie with Sean Lovano, mutual friend of ours, and some of my other buddies, Nick and Eddie. So we gave our extensive take on the Batman movie. But since it's been released, I haven't had a chance to ask you. So I'm actually kind of curious. What did you think of Pattinson's portrayal as Batman and just general the Batman? What did you think of that movie?
So I think it's hard to come at saying anything other than it was different. It's not the same universe as the previous Batmans, so it's not something that I want to sit here and compare to the other Batmans, because if that were the case, I would say that he would rank on right there with Val Kilmer for me, as far as a lower Batman. But it's a totally different universe. I love the fact that he's now a detective. I love the fact that he's portraying more of a comic book era Batman, a noir Batman. He's dark still, like the Christian Bale kind of Batman picked up with, but it's not so dark that it's like spooky for kids kind of dark. It's more of just I don't have time to waste with, crime and whatever. I'm here to solve the crime. I want to solve it, So I think from that take, Pattinson did a great job. I think it was totally different, and he edged himself out of being just the next Batman,
Mm-hmm.
So I think he did a great job.
I think so too. I was pleasantly surprised, and the movie itself, though it's long, I thought was actually entertaining and good. But yeah, I definitely recommend the Batman for anyone who hasn't seen it. I would imagine most people probably have. And I think Pattinson's look as Batman was really good. I mean, he's got the good jawline. I mean, it's really, really good. His Bruce Wayne, I didn't think was quite as good as other portrayals, but it was interesting that in this particular movie, he's Batman for the majority of the movie.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen Titans? There's a TV show on
I've heard of
HBO.
Titans. I haven't seen it yet. I do subscribe to HBO Max, so I should maybe try and check it out one of these days.
So the fun part about that movie was for me personally, if you watch Titans, and I'm already tripping on the name here because we go through Dick Grayson, and then we get Robert Tim Drake. That's the third one, right? Tim Drake.
So Damian Wayne. He was,
Yeah.
I guess, from alternate like Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul's son, right? From an
Yes.
alternate timeline or something.
So Jason Todd is the second. Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing. Jason Todd becomes Red Hood.
Yeah.
And then Tim Drake is the third one.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then Damian Wayne's the fourth. He's Talia al Ghul, and that one gets a little weird because anyway. We'll go back to Tim Drake real quick. Tim Drake shows up in Titans. So they have Dick Grayson as Nightwing already. He's training the new Robin, Jason Todd, who becomes Red Hood. And they start leading up in the third season of Titans to Tim Drake. They're kind of leading on to him. Mm-hmm. The actor who portrays him before he becomes Robin is actually the same actor who is being initiated into the gang in Robert Pattinson's lead-in scene there. So the young kid. So that was kind of a fun connector piece that I'm like, hey, I know that guy. Like he's supposed to be Robin in Titans.
Yeah.
So that was a really fun. And I think there was at least one other person in that movie who had some connection to a DC fandom elsewhere. But yeah, I so a little off topic from the Pattinson thing. I don't want to blow smoke on Pattinson. There were quite a few things, like you said, it was a little long movie. There were times where I was a little not bored, but it's like, okay, how long is this movie? Overall, it was still good. What I would like to see if they ever were to do it is the universe where Bruce Wayne's dad, Thomas Wayne, actually becomes Batman.
Oh, okay.
Because he loses his son, and his mom, Martha, actually becomes the Joker because she goes crazy. I think that would be that in the Batman Beyond series, but it's because I've been getting into Batman Beyond again here more recently. But sorry, that's a little side note for my own just excitement of Batman. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually seen your other podcasts with talking about Pattinson. So I don't know what anyone else has said about him. I don't know what their take on him was. I'm actually now interested to go back and look at that. But
you definitely should. Not that I want to necessarily like always promote my own stuff, but yeah, my podcast is pretty cool, and you should check out that episode. Sean loves it. He loved Pattinson as Batman, and so did my friend Eddie. They both were just like glowing of how awesome that movie was for them. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out for people who may not be interested, but it's not necessarily for everyone's cup of tea, which is understandable. Like our other friend Nick, who participated in the podcast, he didn't particularly care for it as much. He thought it was just okay, and my wife didn't really like it that much either. So
that's fair, That's yeah.
Okay, so then who would be your pick then for your favorite Batman, or what is your favorite Batman movie?
That I feel like I'm that one's a tough one because I feel like saying Christian Bale is it's kind of cheating. It's more recent. Michael Keaton was definitely my favorite before Christian Bale, but Christian Bale really picks it up, gives it a new twist, really takes it to a darker edge, really cleans up the script. He does both a Bruce Wayne. He does Bruce Wayne at like a 7.5 out of 10. I feel like maybe an 8. So he really pulls it up there. I don't think he's the classiest Bruce Wayne, but he does Batman 100%. He does it right. I know he gets a lot of jokes about changing his voice and doing all that stuff, but I think Christian Bale really brought Batman back from the depths after whatever, 4 or 5 movies with George Clooney and Val Kilmer and Michael Keaton kind of wearing him out.
Mhm.
So I think he did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Anything else with Batman, or are you ready for some Depeche Mode talk?
No, let's get with Depeche Mode.
Okay, very good, very good. So, like you, myself, everyone who's a huge fan of the band, I'm sure we were all absolutely devastated when we heard the news that that Andrew Fletcher had unexpectedly passed away. I wanted to give just a little bit of tribute, so I have some notes here, and then of course, if you have any thoughts you wanted to share about his life, that'd be great too. Some interesting tidbits of information that people may not be aware. So Andrew John Fletcher, born on July 8th, 1961 in Nottingham, England. He was hugely inspired by the punk rock movement of the 70s. And what I thought was kind of interesting too, a lot of bands, I mean, you can name several bands where the bandmates met each other in school. So he met Vince Clarke, who was one of the original founding members of Depeche Mode in school. They formed a band together called, let me take a look really quick, find my notes. No Romance in China. I'd never heard of that before. But then later they encountered Martin Gore, and the three of them had formed a Composition of Sound, which I had heard of before. And then later after that, they were eventually joined by Dave Gahan, who had suggested Depeche Mode for them. And then the rest is history from there. But so Vince Clarke would obviously leave after their first album, Speak and Spell. And they were joined after that by Alan Wilder, who was with the band until 1995. It's interesting that in the Depeche Mode 101 concert movie, Andrew kind of like described himself as being the bum, like, that Alan Wilder was the good musician, Dave's the front man, Martin writes the songs, and I bum around. But the reality, I mean, on the surface, it may seem like he wasn't as important as the other members of the band, but he was actually like the backbone. Like, he was, helping get the guys in the studio to get, keep everybody focused, writing material, oftentimes served as the spokesman for the band. So Richard Blade, the famous English DJ who probably knew the band better than anybody, described him as being like the backbone of the band. And another interesting tidbit about Andrew, he was a huge chess player. He was really good. And it's just a fun hobby that he loved to do, which is play chess.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's some good trivia. I've learned a few things right there.
Oh, yeah. So then he unexpectedly passed away on May 26th at the age of 60. I haven't heard any news as to like actual cause of death. I mean, 60 is really young, so I don't know if it was like natural causes or what exactly happened. But I do understand, the family wanted to be private about that. It's just, just unfortunate that he has passed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was a few days after Dave's birthday as well. I think his birthday May 24th or something like that. So
yeah,
kind of unfortunate to be so close to a celebration. I know very little about Andy actually, as far as my Depeche Mode knowledge goes. I was interested. I did a little research on him afterwards. There was a few things I already knew about him to begin with. Like you said, he's the backbone. I know that both Dave and Martin went through recoveries. Dave being with cocaine and a lot of other drugs he was doing. Actually almost dying, I believe, once at least. Or on the verge of it. Not so Nikki Sixx like, but very close to it. And Martin, his deal with alcoholism. And I know Andy kind of pushed to get them to go to rehab and to get better and to actually start making music again. So you're right, that he was the guy behind them. He was very straight-laced himself. I've heard he has a wife and a son and a daughter, I believe.
Yeah.
So he kind of had his life together. I know I read that he was the business manager end of things.
Oh
I
yeah,
know getting into Depeche Mode myself, it's kind of the joke of, are his synths even plugged in? Does he actually ever do anything on stage?
yeah.
Like he kind of he just stands there. He's so straight faced. The camera zooms in on him. He might crack a smile, but he was never the shirtless Dave Gahan of Depeche Mode.
Hmm.
He wasn't the Martin Gore singer of Depeche Mode, even backup vocals.
Hmm.
He was just the guy on stage. And I think that's really what attracted me to him in Depeche Mode. I was actually more of a Andy Fletcher kind of fan more than anything.
Hmm.
Of all the, I'm going to say four. I don't include Vince Clarke so much in the band.
Yeah.
Alan Wilder does get a very good long portion, 14 years of the band, so I do include him. But
Yeah.
of the four of them, I think Andy was by far kind of just the most miss like hidden, shrouded in a mystique. He was very anonymous, and yeah, it was just, you wanted to know more about him because you're like, who is this guy? Why is he in this band? Do they even need him? Is he useful to them? But yeah, as I read, it was more about business for him, and getting the band together and playing, I guess. So what are your takes on him? I mean, were you a big Andy fan, or did you think the same as me?
Yeah, I think along the same lines, it was hard to say who was like my favorite band member. I mean, it's easy to just pick Dave Gahan because he's the front man, so probably. But then the everyone did their role great. Basically, I think that's the way I would like to put it. So Martin's songs were just amazing, fantastic, and they are. And Alan's musicianship, I mean, you can't top that. In fact, I mean, it's often been said that every album since Songs of Faith and Devotion hasn't been quite up to par with other stuff that they've done, even though, I mean, Exciter I thought was enjoyable, and so was Playing the Angel. So they've done some good stuff without Alan for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult to really pick like your favorite. I think, but if I had to pick, probably Dave. But again, in the sense of like, yes, we're doing a tribute, then I'm gonna say right now, Andy was my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say right now, but
Yeah.
um yeah, it's an interesting topics to, just pulling away a little bit from Andy, but just in Depeche Mode in general. Uh, talking about Alan Wilder and the sounds they've gone through all these years.
Hmm.
And I think as a Depeche Mode fan, I really, really got into them pre Playing the Angel. I
Hmm.
was probably 12, 13 at the time
Yeah.
when I think I got Violator was my first album CD that I got. And that, of course, really drew me into it. Enjoy the Silence is a great hit on there.
Yeah.
Uh, but so, I mean, those are the Wilder days. But I think the next two albums I picked up were Ultra and Exciter.
Hmm.
So both post Wilder days. I believe, right? Ultra was 98, and
97, 98. Yeah.
yeah,
I want to say
and
97, 97.
Exciter was right after that, 2001.
2001, 2001.
Yeah. So I mean, that's, yeah. So those are both my. So I don't know. I kind of got in right after Wilder. Those I wouldn't say are the best albums that they have,
Hmm.
but they definitely helped pull me into Depeche Mode. Of course, getting into Black Celebration really tops my charts as far as Depeche Mode albums go. And Songs of Faith and Devotion, I went through a lot of high school years with that album.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's a great one. And then I went through a phase of Speak and Spell, Construction Time Again. The earlier days, there's more synthy, the Vince Clarke kind of sounds to them. Not exactly top of my list. There are, Photographs, a pretty good one. Rain in the Sunshine, great song.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's so much about Depeche Mode that I like. That they changed. They've kind of moved forward. And at first, I'm very I would say almost hands off, kind of. I push it away when Sounds of the Universe came off. I remember being like, okay, Fragile Attention, love that song, great song. But I was very like, this isn't Depeche Mode, this is good stuff, but like this isn't their old stuff. And then what's the newest, latest
Spirit.
Spirit, yeah. A lot, Playing the Angel actually kind of hit pretty hard. Um, but Yeah, I know every time that new album comes out, it takes me a little bit to kind of come up to speed with it. And I don't know about you, probably, well, maybe similar to me. You kind of feel like this isn't Exciter, this isn't Violator, this isn't Black Celebration, or um, the one I always forget that I can picture the front of, with People Are People. Um,
Some Great Reward.
Some Great Reward. Thank you. Yes, that's the one. You know, yeah, you think to yourself, this isn't that stuff, and then I start listening to it on like a road trip or something, and you really understand that they're trying to move forward and bring a new sound, but be themselves still.
Mhm.
And I'm really going to be interested to see. We did go through COVID, but I think the last album we got was 2018.
Yeah, The
Um,
Spirit in 2018. Might have been
so
17, but yeah, around that time. Yeah.
yeah, 17. Yeah. I think the tour was 18. Um, but yeah, they usually do 4 to 5 years for an album. So I'm interested to see if they had one cooking with Andy, or if they're even willing to continue on as a band post Andy. I'm interested to see if Alan makes a comeback at all. I did hear from another friend of mine who's a Depeche Mode fan. Uh, she said that she had heard, who knows if it's true, Andy Fletcher is actually the cause of Wilder leaving. They did not, they butt heads, is what she said. So I'd never heard that otherwise, but I'd be intrigued to see if it meant Wilder coming back to the band, if this means the end for Depeche Mode or what we have going forward. What do you think, as far as, do you think this is the end, or?
Okay, well, this is a perfect segue into what I wanted to bring up next, my next point. So, as far as like what does the future hold now? When I initially heard the news, I was just like fearing the worst because I don't know why, but my mind was immediately drawn towards the Beastie Boys when Adam Yauch passed away, and they essentially called it quits like right then and there, and they've broken up as a band, and that's it. But then shortly after, I think it's like the day of, maybe the day after, Richard Blade did an interview with BBC News. And it's not so much that like Richard Blake can actually be a spokesman for the band, but as mentioned previous, I mean, if there's any DJ who knows the band better than him, like, I mean, he's it. He's
Yeah.
definitely the most knowledgeable when it comes to Depeche Mode. In that interview, he firmly believes that the band's going to continue, that they won't stop. That if it would be Andy's wish for the band to come back if he could, obviously, to continue on without him. That's what he was suggesting or leaning towards. And he also hinted that they had been working on material with a potential release date for next year, and that would potentially be dedicated to him with the world tour to follow. So according to Richard Blade, not that he can be an official spokesman, I mean, but I think it's pretty safe to say that we will be getting some new Depeche Mode next year in 2023, followed by a tour. And yeah, with the passing of Andy, that might entice Alan to want to come back. Not so much because, I mean, I don't know if because he hates him, or I don't think it's anything like that. But Alan actually had come back for a few performances back in like in 2010. So it wouldn't be unheard of for Alan to decide to come back and just tour again with the band, maybe come up with some more material. So we'll see. But again, I'm pretty confident and hopeful that we are going to get some more Depeche Mode.
All right. I'm glad to hear that, because I hadn't looked into it. I hadn't heard anything about it, but I'm definitely hopeful that they keep going on, because their fan base loves them. I mean, their music speaks to people.
Mhm.
And I think Richard's right. And if Andy was a good person and the person that I've read about, that, the music is what lets people express themselves, and I think he would want that to happen.
Mhm.
um, I think their music did that for people, and they're able to continue to make new music to allow new people to express new ideas and new emotions. So
Mhm.
I hope they continue.
Yeah, we're pretty confident, but we'll see what the future holds. So one last thing with Depeche Mode, as mentioned at the top of the show, today is a very significant day in the history of the band. It's the 34th anniversary of their most famous concert, the 1988 Rose Bowl show. Speaking of Pasadena, yes, so they did a really awesome, memorable show at the Rose Bowl 34 years ago today on June 18th, 1988. I was only 7 years old. I wasn't 8 yet. I turned 8 the following month. And obviously, as mentioned, Joel wasn't born yet. But if you're a fan of Depeche Mode, you definitely know this show. You definitely have listened to the record. On the podcast, I actually got to speak to an older friend who's 50, and he was in attendance, Brian Dowdle. Really cool interview. So you should definitely check out my podcast when I talk to him about it. But it's really cool. I just want to just touch on the show briefly. Richard Blade, this is what he had to say from his book, World in My Eyes. It's a really cool read, by the way. So if you love 80s new wave music and you love Richard Blade, you should definitely read his book. This is what he said about the show. 101 set the standard for stadium concerts in the 1980s. It established several records, including highest grossing box office for a single show, highest merchandise count per person, and highest food and drink expenditure per person. But business aside, it was simply an incredible show. And it wasn't just special for the audience, it was special for the band as well. So I think it's really amazing that the show did all those records, which I'm sure other concerts have probably broken those records. But at the time, yeah, so many records were set by that show. And it was just phenomenal. In fact, earlier today, I listened to the whole 101 streaming, the whole album, the live album, just to prepare. And yeah, really cool emotions. You get to hear really cool renditions of certain songs, like extended version of Never Let Me Down again, which was really cool. So, I mean, if there's one concert I wish I could have attended in my life, it would have been that one for sure.
Yeah. That's so I was negative 3 years old at the time. So I did not attend it. The little bit I know about that show, other than the fact that it was in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, which I wish they would do again. However, we are limited to, I believe, I think it's something like 16 shows a year, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Which is why, they do U2, and not to say Depeche Mode isn't a big hit or a big band or something, but I believe that's why they haven't contacted them. I don't know if it requires a certain amount of people in there or whatever. But they've had One Direction. I think BTS was in there or something.
Ed Sheeran, I think, one time.
Yeah, so
Justin Timberlake.
These are big. NSYNC I remember when NSYNC was there. I was at that show. Yeah, but not in the bowl, but outside the bowl. I remember driving around there, just looking at the crowds and the people and the craziness of it all. I'm sure Depeche Mode could still do that. But the one thing I do know about the show is from it's a double DVD album they have. They sold Depeche Mode the videos. And on that video, I don't know if it was Dave or if it was Martin. I think it was Dave. I recall him saying that they were ready to call it quits in America, and they didn't think that America even really cared about Depeche Mode. And then they played the Rose Bowl, and it sold out. And if you know anything about the Rose Bowl in the 1980s, it had the largest seating capacity of any stadium in America. It was something like 99, or at that point, even maybe 102,000 people could fit in that stadium. Now, of course, you're going to limit it a little bit with a concert venue because you're shutting off a partial part of it. But even still, selling out the Rose Bowl at that time was just an incredible feat. And so to hear them say that Pasadena was the city that put Depeche Mode back on the map for America was kind of a neat thing to hear from a band member themselves. So personally, for me, I've always wished I could have gone to that. Wish I could have been alive and old enough to have gone to that. But I really wish and I really hope that at some point in the future, something is able to make them want to come back to the Rose Bowl for even a farewell tour or anything, because I would spend the money to go see that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, hopefully it's not another shameless plug-in on my part, but again, definitely check out my interview with Brian Dotto, Vinyl Collecting with Brian Dotto. So he gives his take, getting to attend the show as a teenager, which is really, really cool. Anything else with Depeche Mode, Batman, or Pasadena, or are we good to wrap up tonight?
Yeah. I could go on forever with Pasadena. And I'm sure Batman as well, all three of them really. Just love them. So I'm glad you brought me on here, and I'm really happy to talk about them. And anybody who's listening to this or whatnot, shameless plug for myself, if anyone wants to talk about any of these three things, I'd love if you track me down, hit me up. I could talk about them for hours. So awesome. Thanks for having me, Robert, and really appreciate it.
Very cool. Very cool. So you still have your Instagram, obviously. Where can people find you on social media?
I don't have a Facebook anymore. I'm basically limited to Instagram. My handle is Free Tibbet. Other than that, LinkedIn is about my only social networking. Getting a little professional here, so but yeah.
Okay, well, I guess if you're cool with it, Joel, if anybody is interested in hitting Joel up, touching base with him, I mean, reach out to me, because I definitely know how to find and reach Joel. I'm glad we had the chance to talk. This was really fun for me. I mean, I love doing this, talking about random topics, recording it, so then I can go back and listen to it and always have it. So it's really fun for me. So thanks, Joel, for joining me tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, everyone. You've been listening to the Casting for Fun podcast. Have a good night.